Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our education meeting of this evening. It's our first education meeting of the school year, so that's always exciting, and we just want to welcome everyone back and say we hope everyone had a great summer. We're looking forward to a fantastic year. And I will turn it over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Thank you, all of you, for coming out this evening. The first presentation that you're going to hear is, we got some more information on our Challenge Success Survey. The Challenge Success Survey was given to all of our students in grades 6 through 12. And we got some really fascinating information back from it. This is the qualitative data that you're going to see this evening. But there is another component to this. The next component to this is a parent survey for grades 6 through 12. And we're able to get that ready for the community on next Tuesday, September 25th. Now, what's really important is, in order for this to be scientifically valid based on the evaluator, the researchers from Stanford, they want at minimum 50% of the parents to be part, and they're shooting for 70%. So this is our first begging, and there will be more beggings, but this is the first begging, because I think when you see the results of this, you'll see that it has value, and we'd like to hear the parents' voice. With that, Dr. Everslag will give us an update.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. As part of the district's strategic plan, All Forward, a student-driven schools pathway, we have partnered with Stanford University with a program called Challenge Success. Part of the Challenge Success program was a survey that Mr. Copeland referenced that all of our students in grades 6 through 12 participated in. And we have received both quantitative and qualitative results, and this is a summary of a little bit of both, some of the high-level results that we have received. The Stanford Survey for Adolescent School Experiences asks students questions about their experiences in school related to homework, academic engagement, integrity, the level of teacher support, meeting parent and teacher expectations, extracurricular activities and responsibilities, and sleep, physical health, and stress. In addition to that, we were able to, those aspects of the survey that I just read are actually a part of their survey. So all the feedback that we have in regards to those categories is nationally normed against other Challenge Success schools across the country. And the Challenge Success schools are school districts and private schools that have a demographic similar to ours. Not necessarily demographic, our type of performance that's similar to the school district, our Lower Merion School District. We were able to personalize the survey as well to also ask students questions about their sense of belonging, their access to home internet and technology, the modification of some language that they use for gender identification, and some perspectives on possible school changes. So we had added some open-ended questions to get some specific qualitative data about our students' experiences. We administered the survey last February and March, a small window. We had a very high turnout rate of students. Our actual participation rate was much higher than actually listed there. All of our participation rate was in the high 90s for all 4 schools. However, part of their methodology is to ensure that the students that participate in the survey for which the data is contributed to the results, that they did so seriously. So they have a method to make sure that they weed out students that did not take the survey seriously. So we're still able to, as you can see, yield very high results for participation. As a part of our partnership with Challenge Success, they deliver several things for us. First, they offer an interactive dashboard that has our quantitative results. That came to us in late May last year, and we showed a little bit of a snippet of that to the Curriculum Committee of the Board on May 29th last year, but haven't had the opportunity to share this publicly since then. They also provide a 30-minute conference call with our district leadership team to provide us with some high-level overview of some of the results and some strategies they suggest. And then there are specific building conference calls that were held between the Challenge Success team and building-based teams that include the leadership team at the school's administration. We had some parents involved in those conference calls, and they gave us some feedback on specific buildings. And then in late August, we received the findings from the open-ended questions. So what they do over the summer is they code the results, they respond, they take the results, and they code them, they group them, and they provide some summary findings of the qualitative data. So we're going to share some of the key findings in these 4 categories, starting with support at school. The majority of our students in both the middle and high school have at least one adult at school that they would feel comfortable going to if they had a personal problem. So that's personal, not a school problem or a school question, but a personal problem. And this is the specific question that we asked students. If you need help with a personal problem, is there one adult at your school who you feel you could go to? And the results were as follows. We had numbers that Challenge Success compared to other schools in the consortium, and they gave us feedback that considered this a strong positive finding by the Challenge Success research team. So in relative to other schools in the program, our numbers were higher than most. Obviously, we would want every student to be able to identify an adult in the building who they would feel comfortable going to. Our results were good, but we obviously want to see improvement. We will be re-administering the survey again this May, so all of our results we're expecting to see some areas of growth and some identified data over time.
Scott, can I just ask a quick clarifying question? So for the first one, 56.7%, that's 56.7% of the 75.2% or whatever. It's not 56.7% of the total population. Is that correct?
56% of the
respondents.
Of the Ballot-Kenwood responders.
Responders,
Correct.
but not the Ballot-Kenwood students.
Correct.
So there's a percentage of kids that are not included in.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And these numbers, the trend, as you see, is higher for high school than it is for middle school. That is consistent with the trend nationally. They attribute that to mostly at high school, kids have more adults that they interact with, and with activities and athletics. They have different relationship with usually coaches and sponsors, and that they may be a person who students turn to. So that's a trend that's consistent with other Challenge Success schools. Interestingly, at 3 of our 4 schools, over half of the students said they would go to a teacher first, and about a third said that person would be a counselor. Welsh Valley was slightly different than the other 3 and actually reversed, and said over half of the students said the person they would go to was a counselor, and about a third would be a teacher in the building. Regarding engagement, many students, especially at the middle school, report high levels of meaningful engagement, but also many report just doing school. So the crux of this program, which was crafted by Denise Pope from Stanford University, she did her dissertation on this work and wrote a book called Doing School. And it was about students that go through the ritual of school and by most measures are relatively successful, but just don't feel engaged or enjoy the school that much. That's what she would qualify as doing school. And through our process of assessing students of their levels of engagement, we're able to identify students that would fall into that category. So they break up engagement in 3 areas. The affective area, which means how much the students, are they excited about work? Do they enjoy doing the work? The behavioral area is, are they going through the process of actually showing work? They're submitting homework. They care about school. They care about the results. And cognitive, meaning that the work that students are doing is valuable and meaningful. So as you might imagine, students that are fully engaged would be what we would hope for, and those would be students that scored high in all 3 of those areas. And students that were not engaged would score low in all 3 of those areas. Students that are considered doing school score very high in the behavioral area and low in the other 2 areas. So behaviorally, they go through the process of submitting assignments, working hard on tasks, but they just don't feel excited about it or feel like it's valuable. In all 4 of our schools, the highest percentage of students fell into the doing school range. This data was very much aligned with other schools in the Challenge Success Consortium. Again, data that we would hope that we would move towards students being more fully engaged. But again, these are the students that participated in the survey and the percentage of those students that would fall in each category by school. As far as this brief profile of those engagements, I kind of explained a little bit about that, what fully engaged and not engaged. Just doing school was high in the behavioral area. But being purposefully engaged would be high in the behavioral area and also in the cognitive area, where students would feel the work is meaningful. They may not love it, they may not enjoy it, but they find it meaningful. That would be the students that would fall in the purposefully engaged category. So as a symptom of doing school, and this is the data that really stood out to most and creates a little bit of a reaction when people see it, is that 9 out of 10 of our students at the secondary level self-report at least one instance of cheating over the past school year. So what that means is we give students a long list of possible experiences and have you engage in this experience over the last several years. And in some ways, they'll report whether they have, whether they have not. I'll share you some of those examples in just a moment. But the most frequently cited cheating behavior includes copying someone else's homework or collaborating on an assignment when the instructor specifically requested the student not to. Now, one of the suggestions that they have through this is for teachers in homework preparation to be more specific about whether or not collaboration is acceptable or encouraged. And as we know, the world is a collaborative environment, and that in many cases, collaboration on homework should be encouraged. But the default for students is if they don't have that sense of clarity, they assume that they're expected to do that on an individual basis. And then if they were to collaborate, they would classify that, in this case, as cheating. And so while the cheating rates are pretty typical, it's unfortunate these numbers are very typical amongst the schools who participate in the Challenge Success Survey. They are a symptom of a culture where students are doing school. Getting the result is more important to them than the meaning or the purpose behind that. So we dove into this a little bit deeper based on some questions we had the other day, just to see where students were as far as the majority of students reporting that they have engaged in cheating and what does that mean. And in most cases, it's working on assignment when the instructor asked for individual work, copying someone else's homework. Some of the answers that were lower on the list were paraphrasing or copying a few sentences of material from a written source without citing. And then there were much smaller numbers of students that fell in the category of helping someone else cheat on a test, copying from another student for a test. Those numbers were low. Obviously, we wouldn't want any of those students to engage in those activities, but the collaboration was the biggest of the categories. So our question that we've posed as school teams and as a district is, what can we do to move students from the just doing school level of engagement or not being engaged to being fully engaged or purposefully engaged? Some suggestions that the Challenge Success team has that we are working on is just including providing meaningful, engaging assignments, reducing busy work, helping students find purpose in their work, whether it's homework assignment or classwork, and providing opportunities for students to pursue personal interests. When they are pursuing something that is personally of interest to them, they're far less likely to cheat. They're far more likely to find it meaningful and purposeful. Moving on to health and well-being and how students reported in this area. 60 to 70% of our students in each school reported that they often or always feel stressed by schoolwork. So we asked them an open-ended question. Right now in your life, what, if anything, causes you the most stress and why? And what Challenge Success does is take those open-ended answers, they group them into themes, and those were the themes that the students' responses were grouped into, And the biggest cause of stress as identified by students was workload. So between 49 and 61% of the responses referred to workload as the biggest cause of stress. And through this, we have some quotes from some students. I'm not going to necessarily read word for word, but you can see a high school and a middle school quote about their experience about their workload and the effect that it has on sleep and managing other aspects of their life and how that causes stress for them. The second biggest cause of stress as identified by students was the area of assessment. And that included things about tests, grades, difficulty understanding material for class. That accounted for 31 to 39% of the responses. And you can see from the student responses how that the effect of projects and tests have on their stress level and how the pressure of the culture of grades contributes to stress. Some reflection specific from the Challenge Success team about the Lower Merion School District data was that our students report academic load spikes in 7th and 11th grades. Now the 11th grade spike is pretty consistent with what is nationally. Ours was a little bit higher of a spike in 11th grade than what is part of the average. However, our 7th grade spike was inconsistent with some of the national data. So we have a 7th grade spike that other districts do not. So one of the recommendations was kind of to look at those specific grade levels, policies, programs, practices in those grade levels that may contribute to that and help us better manage that. The next category for key findings is around time use. And so our students' reflections from the research show that our students are spending between 13 and 20 hours per week of school and non-school homework. So the amount of time that they're spending is in line with other schools. When we talk about non-school homework, we're talking about maybe SAT prep, it could be religious school, it could be an enrichment language that a child may be taking, but it's homework that they're doing, obviously doing at home that was not assigned by the school, 13 to 20 hours a week as the average and that of course was higher for high school than it was for middle school. As far as extracurricular involvement, we have higher rates in our district of students involved in extracurriculars, both in and out of school. So the research team noted that we have an unusually high percentage of students who are double dipping. That was their language. It said they were participating in a sport in school and then a club sport, that same sport outside of school as well. And our students are reporting between 6.5 and 7.8 hours per weeknight of sleep, which unfortunately is typical for adolescents nationwide and far below the recommended average of 8 to 10 hours that would hope for students in this age range. And as far as the average amount of free time, students are reporting 2.2 to 2.3 hours per weekday. Obviously, very little variability there between the grades. And notice the research team noted that our students, as you might imagine, lead very busy lives in and out of school and suggested that we can help students better plan their time. Some surprises from the data that was shared is we had approximately 15% of middle schools and 23% of high schools reported working a job at least 1 hour per workday. We didn't have data around that, and so the surprise was simply a guess, but we were anticipating that number being lower. Gave us very good information as well as childcare. About 1 in 5 students report caring for siblings 1 or more hours per weekday throughout the week. Obviously good for us to have a sense of that, and as added complexity in some students' lives.
Scott, let me just interject. One of the things that we wanted, the problem with data is it begs the difference of we want more data. But what we are going to do is also in these various categories figure out not the identity of the students, but what commonalities they may have. Is it particular courses? Is it what are the things? Is it gender, male, female? Is there what are the things so that we can be more targeted in our response? So it would be good to know who we're really talking about. For the kids who say we don't have anybody in school who we can talk to, is that a group of kids we can find and we can do something about?
Yeah, the data is anonymous data, so it's not linked to students, but we can group it in a lot of different ways, by grade level, by number of students that are taking 2 honors classes, the students that don't take any. There's a lot of different ways that the data can be disaggregated. So these were just some ideas from Challenge Success of how we can support students' use of time. Some of these are more realistic than others, but there are some good ideas of things that they would challenge us, no pun intended, with for the schools to look at to provide some relief for students, including things like no homework nights, some guidelines for extracurricular activities, some adjustment of schedules around finals, schedules dead weeks. They call them dead weeks, where there's no testing allowed during certain weeks. So they have a range of suggestions that some schools have tried successfully and asked us to consider, and our teams are doing just that. So we asked students about some possible changes, and again, this is open-ended qualitative data. We asked them what, if anything, could be done at your school to help you relieve your stress. And those answers were, again, grouped by themes, with several different themes. And some of those the top responses from students included reducing workload. In all schools, it was the most frequently cited response. And there were some quotes about students basically requesting less homework, and talked about the impact of the amount of homework has on their work life, school life balance. After reducing workload, there were 3 different themes that emerged as the best way to reduce stress according to students. The first of those 3 was classified as pedagogy and learning, change the way students are taught. They talked about the projects and getting students more invested in projects, de-emphasizing busy work and making sure the work is very meaningful and thought out. The second of those 3 themes was changes to assessment. Again, a little less emphasis on testing and test scores, more emphasis on learning and the experiences and creativity. Was a very powerful quote. And then there's a quote from a Harrington student about the culture around grades and the stress around grades and results, to try to de-emphasize, suggesting that de-emphasizing test scores could increase student motivation. And the third of the 3 themes that resulted from students was very honest, they don't know. They weren't able to either identify the stress, or they weren't looking to the school to reduce the stress. They owned it in some cases, just said it's part of life. It's something I have to learn how to manage. In some ways it helps push me. That was the third of the largest responses after reduced workload. So in light of this information, how are we responding? How does Challenge Success recommend that we respond? And they have a framework that they call SPACE, and they have several suggestions and ask us to look at our information from a building team from these different categories: student use of student use of time, project and problem-based learning, alternative authentic assessment, a climate of care, and education for the whole community. And they encourage us to look at all 5 areas. And we are doing just that. A couple examples of that. There were representatives from each of the 4 secondary buildings, and myself included. We went to a summer conference with other Challenge Success schools, and Denise Pope and her team. We have this book, Overloaded and Underprepared, which is their response book that they have for the teams, that is in the hands of all the secondary buildings. And they have offered us some protocols and some ways to look into managing some of our data with some positive responses. We're going to be engaging in the parent survey beginning next week, and we'll encourage everyone to participate in that. That will give us excellent data as well. The high school principals held student leadership conferences this past spring. They shared the quantitative data with students and got some really great feedback from kids of some action plans that can be in place. That work is continuing this year to ensure that there's student voice in the responses to this. And each of the 4 buildings, secondary buildings, has held building forums with their teams. They'll have some public forums as well, and they each have some action plans that they're working in line with the district. From a district level, we're going to be looking at homework practices, and one of the things that we gained from the conference was some protocols to help administrators and teachers go through a process of assessing the quality of the homework assignments. Looking at things like how long an assignment should take, is there clarity around the assignment? Can the assignment be done independently, or does it require a parent or additional resources at home that may advantage or disadvantage some students? And judging the purpose and meaning of it. And if the purpose and meaning of an assignment is not clear, it shouldn't be assigned. And so we're going to have a final plug here for the Challenge Success Survey. We actually just moved the date up. We were able to do that within the last 24 hours. So this date was listed as October 1st, but we're going to have our Office of Community Relations working with us for a full court press on the community, as well as our ISC representatives are leading this as well to get information out about the parent survey. The reason we moved it up to next week is because the open houses at the secondary level are all held next week, and we'll be able to distribute some information and flyers for people as well. And what the survey does is really ask parents about not necessarily how they feel, but their observable data about their child. So the survey is about 20 minutes. Parents have to sit through the whole survey. They can't interrupt it, so they have to go through the whole 20 minutes. And they are asked to complete it twice. I know that sounds like if they have 2 kids, because for each student's experience. If you have 2 or more kids, I know that's maybe a lot to ask, but it will give us valuable information. The more responses that we can get. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
This is really interesting. Thank you for the presentation. My question, I thought the feedback about students wanting less busy work, homework, and more time either in school or at home to focus on more meaningful, thought-provoking assignments was really interesting. So but there's also, some value in repetitive activities when you're trying to learn a language. And is some of this being talked about in terms of curriculum and, ways to make some of the assignments more, I guess, deeper and more impactful and less busy work?
Absolutely. That's part of our work as an academic council team. And there is a time and place for homework, and there are research-based homework practices that are effective, including some that you name. So this isn't a plan to disband in homework, just to make it more meaningful and not feel the need to give an assignment at the expense of giving a meaningless assignment.
Sometimes I imagine some of that the teachers might feel like is prescriptive through the curriculum, so you'd have to help change the curriculum so they didn't feel that way, right?
It is, and teacher response has been also, there is in some cases a sense of pressure to deliver homework. Right. And so maintain the rigor and so forth. And so helping teachers balance that and know that we, teachers that obviously want to do the right thing and do what's best for kids, we've had really good conversations about it.
Thanks, Dr. Afslaj. I have a couple short questions and a comment. One, I was curious, you mentioned that the survey showed 6.5 to 7.8 hours of sleep, and I was wondering if there was any breakdown or if the survey results could be broken down between middle school and high school. And I think that might be particularly helpful if there was a difference, because that's a pretty wide gap, and and that'd be one question. The other one, I thought that in terms of, it seemed that I was curious if the survey itself characterized the activity as cheating. In other words, was the question it wasn't, do you cheat by sharing homework or talking to friends about homework, or was it, do you engage in these activities, collaborating on homework, and then do the survey people classify that as cheating? Because it seems to me that it's a pretty broad definition of cheating, and I don't know that anyone would ascribe to, talking to friends about homework, or talking about a chapter in Shakespeare, how do you interpret it in terms of as cheating? And I think it's the percentage of people that cheat according to the survey is so high that it seems to me that it's high because of the definition that's used. And to my mind, I mean, like our Spark Notes, is that cheating? I don't know. But I mean, it seems that's a question that I think might be kind of shocking to parents to read this and to see so many people are cheating, when I think the definition is really broad.
It is broad, but it is specific. So the kids, the responders definitely know they're referring to cheating, and they're listed with different activities. Now, we can break that down by looking at each response. We know we have a better sense of what some of those responses were, and some were less than 10%, less than 5%. And all the data can be broken down, to your earlier question, by grade level, including hours of sleep, grade level and building. So each building has a similar presentation with specific data for their particular building that they've shared and talked about.
So the kids knew what was referred to as cheating, and that must have meant that they knew that they were doing an assignment where the expectation was that they shouldn't have shared it with somebody else. So they knew that.
That's fair enough. I understand. It just seems still broad. Still, I mean, when they were doing it, do you believe that they thought they were cheating, or is it just
they said so.
Well,
I just want to respond to his question. I asked the exact same question about the sleep in the education meeting, or the curriculum meeting, and the response at that time was that the high number came from the high schools and the lower number, or the more sleep was at the middle schools and the less sleep was at the high schools.
It's pretty linear, 6 to 12. 11th to 12th graders get the least amount of sleep, but there was minor variability by building with that.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We had the pleasure of seeing the presentation and curriculum, and again, just seeing the full circle of student-driven schools makes this exciting. I wanted to actually speak to some of the reflections on slide 30, and not just the breakdown on the sleep side, but also some of the developmental differences in terms of what might we look at with regard to amount of homework, extracurricular hours of sleep, average amount of free time, developmentally for our students in the middle school versus the high school, because obviously it's being presented as our secondary schools, but we know that developmentally there are going to be different kinds of experiences for our students. So have we engaged in conversation around what some of that might look like as we start implementing some of these reflections?
We have, and it is building specific and level specific. But for example, like this information connected with the 7th grade spike, for example, we are guessing that may be connected to 7th grade bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah season. Students have maybe additional outside homework that would fall in that area. We're guessing that's one of the causes, but we're not sure of that. Did I answer your question?
I did want to, you did, but in terms of, for example, amount of free time and just kind of how we're thinking about supporting our students from a developmental standpoint in terms of where they are and what their needs are, and then how we can also support parents in terms of those transitions.
Well, a big part of Challenge Success's suggestions is parent education. And I think we have to decide, we haven't yet fully worked this out, as to what extent we want to devote resources to our internal plans and trying to address things like homework, our sphere of influence, a little bit more. But they're open to engaging with us with the community in a lot of different ways, so that's one that they suggest. But that would require engagement with the community.
Thank you.
Yes.
Again, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted these numbers and sort of piggyback, on Robin, these numbers include those students that learn differently?
They do,
Okay.
they do.
Thank you. I thought of two since our meeting the last time. And the first one is about the purposefully, fully, just doing school slide. And I am curious with what the breakdown is and where do the numbers shift for middle school? I would presume, and maybe even ninth grade. Presuming that kids coming from elementary school are kind of excited to be in middle school, are the numbers for the entering sixth graders different from the aggregate of the whole?
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, these are the aggregate numbers for BC, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So 35% of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are doing school. Unfortunately, in front of me now, I don't have that data.
Because I'd be curious to see, like, do they come in like really excited and engaged and then do things drop off? Or do they come in already just doing school?
No, that's a good question. I think we want to delve into this to say, there's 6% who are not engaged, who are they? Are there any characteristics about those students that we should know about? If the 22% that are fully engaged, who are they?
Right.
And what is that all about? So absolutely, that's what we have
And
to do.
I would question the same thing about entering ninth grade students, because again, new school, excited maybe to be there.
Yep.
What happens? And then my next question has to do with the parent survey, which, I love that we're getting, the next view from the next view of the students from the parents' point of view, but it's early in the school year. Do you think that, especially again for the new to sixth grade, new to the middle school experience or new to the high school experience, do you think having 2 weeks of school is going to give a really valid picture of what parents believe is happening with their students, at least on the 6th and 9th grade, maybe?
We're going off the guidance of the Challenge Success team. They have suggested that they believe it to be okay. I think it's a legitimate question that we will, I'm sure, suggest that we do the parent survey again, especially if we can get the responses that we hope.
Thanks, Scott. I just wanted to follow up on, I was very interested by the jobs number. And it's 1 hour per weekday, which seems to me that it was probably an average. Because I'm just thinking, if one of the things we could do would be cross-check how many kids have requested working papers. Because if they get their working papers, they're not allowed to work every day. I mean, you're limited to the number of hours that you can actually work, and you have to have working papers to work somewhere that, pays over the table rather than just, babysitting on a Friday night. I'd just be really curious to see, delving deeper into that number to get a clearer sense of just how that plays out. Because there is it seems high, especially for our middle schoolers. That's a lot of kids working. So
It could be babysitting. It could be however they deem that. So
right.
So
So does it mean, well, I babysat 5 hours on a Saturday night,
Right.
and that averages out to 1 hour a week a day?
Right.
So
Yep.
is that how we're counting it? 5 hours on a Saturday night. Babysitting is a whole lot different than going to a job every day for an hour.
My understanding is it's that they do at least an hour a day, weekday, not an hour.
Yeah, that's how it was presented, and I
I think that's Again, I
That's
don't have
pretty
the question
huge.
right in front of me, but I think it was that level of specificity, per, an hour per work weekday, per weekday.
Just a quick question. Perhaps might be helpful, I don't know if this has been done before, if you could share just a copy of the survey with us so we can see how the questions are phrased and help us interpret that, at least interpret your interpretation of what Stanford provides to us to understand how the questions were phrased. It would be helpful to me, I know that, maybe everyone.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Deborah and I were just talking a moment ago, and she mentioned about the teachers. Are we going to survey the teachers on their perceptions?
So the Challenge Success, initially their program was surveying students. They're just bringing in the parent survey, so this is relatively new. They don't have the history of data from the parents as well, and they plan to do a teacher survey, they don't have it ready yet.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation. It obviously is going to give us a lot to think about in relation to the strategic plan. I mean, it ties in incredibly well with the strategic plan.
Yeah, I think
so.
this gives us good information that we can benchmark and we can really get our arms around and move through. The second presentation for this evening is the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is prescribed by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to all school districts. They have a particular set way they'd like to see it. Way back when Lower Merion District decided to depart from the norm, you created your own strategic plan and then backed this one into it, which we continue to do. So we will do what the state asks us to do, but this is in conjunction with our strategic plan. Brian?
Thank you very much, Mr. Copeland. Thank you very much, board members, for allowing me to present the process of the comprehensive state plan. This time last year, we began the planning process of reviewing our comprehensive state plan. An overview of the plan. This comprehensive plan is a mandated plan by the Pennsylvania Department of Education and requires all school districts across the Commonwealth to complete a plan every 3 years. The plan is outlining the district's commitment for ensuring a quality education for our students, as well as providing meaningful professional development for our teachers and our staff. The plan describes an educational program and services that are provided within our school district, as well as the services and programs that are accessed within the district. And what's really important to remember, in 2013, when the Lower Merion School District began taking a look and considering the strategic plan, we wanted to make sure that we align that comprehensive plan with the strategic plan intentionally, to make sure that people weren't confused. What is our focus? Is our focus going to be the comprehensive plan, or is the focus going to be the strategic plan? So we worked very hard and responsibly to ensure that both plans were in fact aligned. The planning process contains 6 sections. I'll be sharing with you briefly in the upcoming slides a little bit about each one of these 6 sections, the one being the profile, another focusing on core foundations, sharing the assurances, focusing on needs assessment, as well as the district level planning, and then finally the plan submission. The district profile is made up of different components, one being the district demographics of the makeup of our district, the planning process of the district, and what entailed the planning process for pulling this particular plan together. Our mission statement and vision statement are front and centered, talking about our commitment to excellence and continuous improvement here in the Lower Merion School District, and how we support students to achieve to their highest level of performance, both in critical thinking and creativity. And then our vision statement is also front and center with our motto of entering to learn and going forth to serve. We also will share in detail in this particular plan a list of shared core values in the district, as well as giving some information and overview about our educational community, and to talk a little bit about the planning committee that was involved in the process of providing information for the plan. The plan focuses on core foundations of our school district for how we educate students and support student learning through the use of rigorous standards, through well-developed curriculum and effective instructional strategies. We also take a look at how we measure our student success through a multitude of assessments, both diagnostic, benchmarking, formative assessments, as well as our summative assessments. We take a look at how we create a safe and supportive learning environment within our schools and across the district. We identify the types of resources that we use to support the teaching and the learning, and we also support the professional learning of all of our staff. Last school year, Ms. Kimberly Frazier spent some time in the months of February and March presenting her special education plan and the department's plan. And during this time, she had the opportunity to share assurances that were aligned to the student services and special education services, which are embedded in the overall comprehensive plan. It's important to note that and point that out because we don't want people to think that the special education plan is a separate plan from the comprehensive plan. It's actually grouped together and submitted as a part of the overall comprehensive plan. So we all know that data can certainly tell a district story. We heard a great presentation by Dr. Eveslag, and that these data analysis helps determine what are the district's strengths, what programs and services have the greatest potential for growth based on the current data. So this evening we heard many examples of data around challenge success. And what's important to think about and remember that the comprehensive plan that we are working with right now is very tightly aligned to that strategic plan. And the challenge success surveys that we were just momentarily talking about are aligned to that strategic plan in many ways, looking at how we can transform curriculum, how we can get feedback from students about redefining success and how they can be successful in different ways and how, as a district, we can support that, as well as taking a look and listening to students through a student-driven school. So obviously gathering the right data from a variety of sources can really create baselines on student skills and stakeholder attitudes and beliefs, as well as provide an accurate picture of current district processes. The action plan allows us to align our goals and strategies to what we call implementation steps. And again, we spent much time thinking about these action plans with a heavy focus on our annual report that we provide to the board and the community in May. And we take a look at the explorations and the work around the strategic plan and align those goals with particular strategies and implementation steps. The overall process of our plan, you will see, we started this particular process, as I mentioned earlier, in September of 2017 with an overview of our Pennsylvania Department of Education web tool, where we do a lot of the building and creation of the plan and modifications of that plan. We worked diligently through the fall up and through February, and then we heard the presentation provided by Ms. Frazier around the special education plan in February and March. Her plan went before the board in April, and that particular plan was submitted to the Pennsylvania Department of Education May 1st of 2018. That led us to our summer work with our consultant, Joanne Parati, who helps us with our compliance plan and helps monitor and keep track of our work. And making sure that we're focused on the work and making sure that we're aligned to the state of Pennsylvania's compliance piece. Last week, during the education or curriculum committee meeting, the curriculum committee heard a process of our plan, as you are hearing this evening as well. October 1st, we will be placing this particular plan on the district website as well as every school site for a public review. Documents of the plan will be located in the main office of each building, as well as the lobby of the administration building for people who don't have access to an internet or internet connection for that review, as well as response cards to share their particular feedback. At the end of that 28-day review, the plan will be brought before the board in November for a presentation and a submission, a request for approval of the board on the November 19th board meeting to keep us in compliance with the finalized presentation and making that document available and submitted through the tool on November 30th, 2018. This time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have a question, but I guess I do have a question. The email address where our community members can respond, since this presentation will be on the website, what email address are we going to have them provide the feedback that we're requesting?
Thank you for your question. I'm working closely with Amy Buckman and Dan Kapkin. We will be using a link that's embedded within our website that's directly in the form. It's the same process that was utilized for community members during the special education feedback submissions in March and February.
Okay, great. So then if possible, or if it makes sense, and I'll leave it to the communications team to decide that, maybe we add link will be provided so that folks aren't confused when they do go and look at what our process is, so they know how they can provide feedback.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. At this time, we're going to take audience recognition on any item anybody would like to discuss. So please come and sign in with Ms. LaPera. There's please, when you speak, state your name and generally where you reside in the district. And there's a 3-minute limit. Ms. Jenkins, you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. My name is Ruth Jenkins. I live in Wynwood. First, I'd just like to eliminate the word cheating. It's a pejorative word. It almost criminalizes a very small, maybe misstep by a student. And I would think that they would probably get help with homework from somebody else because they're under so much stress. Rather than take a bad mark, they would rather get some help from some of their friends. I also think that rather than survey the teachers should read this survey. If they are not making it known that they are available and that students can come to them when they're having a problem or they don't understand something, and I've had that happen several times with students that I know where the teacher is not available, they don't know when they can get there, they come to the room and the teacher is not there, they don't understand something, they have no place to go, so it kind of like goes out up into the air. I also think that maybe considering staggering the homework so that math is given on Mondays and English on Tuesdays, and so that they don't have all the homework all the time, and also weekends. So weekends have no recovery time. There's no time for them to recover. And more students work than you realize, and they work more than 1 hour a day. A week. Many of them have jobs. Many of them come home to empty houses. They're latchkey kids. They fend for themselves for a lot of the day. Two working parents is not an uncommon thing. So there are things that can be done that would certainly take the pressure off some of the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Noah Salmonson, Narberth. I want to thank you guys again for conducting the study. I took part in it. The statistics were eye-opening, though some of them were not surprising. I was just messaging several of my friends, telling them the statistics, and they're like, yeah, I don't find it odd that 9 out of 10 students cheat. I, of course, was reminded of a Neil deGrasse Tyson quote where he said, students cheat because our schools value grades more than they value learning. And I don't think it could be more true, because it's more kids now only care about the grades. They don't care if they learn it. They don't care whether or not they retain the information. They only care about the grades. And more that's happening in more of my classes, more of my friends' classes, where they are swamped with work that is busy work most of the time. I have, I think, 3 packets right now that, or my friends have packets. We have a lot of packets that are busy work. And some of it, as members have stated, some of it is repetitive, and with good reason. Some of it that will help you learn, but a majority of it won't, and several students don't find it helpful at all. I had other things to say. The fact that only 1/3 of students said that their trusted adult would be their school counselor, I found surprising in the high school. I thought that number would be higher, but as I messaged my friends, they didn't find that surprising at all. They also said that there is a lot of fear about going to those people only because of programs such as START, where they fear entering into that program, or they fear those programs just because of the social stigmatism around it. But I look forward to seeing more of the survey with the parents, seeing their views on it, and I thank you guys for looking into it and really evaluating how to make our schools a better place.
Thank you, Noah. Next speaker.
Hi, Euphoria Davis, Bryn Mawr, Harridan class of 2014. Okay, so I would personally, Bryn Mawr, I'm a taxpayer. I thought it was a great survey, but personally, I think there needs to be, I get it's anonymous, but there needs to be a breakdown of race, gender, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, because I think, one, that will help better target specific groups, but there are marginalized groups in this school who I think are the ones who aren't engaged. Part of that, again, has to do with curriculum, not just the workload, but the content of the workload. You spend 12 years learning about a bunch of dead white guys, and the only thing you learn about people who look like me was we were slaves, and then Martin Luther King came along and woo, now we're free. That's not going to prompt engagement, and I was an engaged student. It was taxing on me as I did IB, and all we learned about was white supremacy and imperialism. And so I think you need to be culturally sensitive, and I really don't think that was emphasized here, and better assisting the more marginalized groups. There was some talk about students working. A lot of that is not above the table because they need under the table work, because that's where the money is, because a lot of them, they have to work to help their families. They are working an hour or 2 or 3 a day. No, it's not legal, but they're doing it because they have to. And how are we helping these students? How are we helping the students who don't have familiar support? Because I've had great parents who supported me, and that's why I achieved the way I did, but a lot of people don't. So we can't just put all this emphasis on parents when a lot of people aren't going to have parental support. But a lot of people aren't going to have the parental support that you're talking about. Oh yes, parental engagement, that's really cute, but that's not realistic for the students who need it the most. So what are we doing to serve these kids? I volunteered at after school program, and I see these kids, and I'm so fearful of what your schools are going to do to these kids. The shine and the light in their eyes, how are you going to take that away? Because because we talk about competition and cheating, and yes, those are all true, and that's hard and that's terrible. But before we even get to this point, they don't even feel like they can engage in the competition. They don't feel that hope because they are beaten down emotionally in these schools for 12 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Crystal Blunt. It's been a while, guys. How are you? Look good. I just wanted to know if you would put the hard copies possibly in the libraries so that people don't have to walk over or get them out of the school, or if you could just put them in the local libraries and people could just walk up and read it if they need to read it. For anybody that doesn't have computers or access to computers or not a car or anything, that they could come over and do that, just walk. That was my only comment.
Thank you, Ms. Blunt. That was the last question? Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending this evening. And our next meeting is October 8th at 8 p.m. right here. See you then.